Welcome, everybody, to the X Factor podcast. I want to extend my most sincere apologies for hiring our intern, Parker. For the fact that we did not publish a podcast last week. It's his fault down there. And a special, deep condolences to James Elliott, P1 listener. He is a D1 OG, day one original gangster.
Yes.
James Elliott.
Yep.
And he waits patiently with his P1 listener coffee mug in hand on his patio, his back deck, at his picnic table to consume our content. Now, he would say that he has bottom gun coffee in his coffee mug. I think it's just filled with whiskey. And that's all a ruse, I believe is the correct term. Anyway, he got all set up and camped out, posted pictures of, his anticipation of the next episode premiering.
Yep.
This past Saturday. And much to his profound disappointment and dismay, Parker dropped the ball.
We let him down.
We had no episode. I would take responsibility for this, but I didn't hire Parker.
Right.
I want to remind everyone, Parker was John's hire. I wanted to hire a cheerleader at San Diego State University who was willing to also be our intern. But John said, let's go with Parker. So James could have had a cheerleader who would be more consistent and responsible than the young man you see on the screen down there. But what we'll do is we'll just keep trying to move the newspapers closer to the door. And speaking of coffee mugs and things, this podcast, John, is brought to you by
Bottom Gun Coffee, our friends at bottomguncoffee.com. And they make the finest, the best coffee, I think, on the planet, because it's made by a bunch of guys who spend a lot of time drinking coffee. And that's submarine veterans, guys that spend a lot of time under the ocean. And the best thing to do to stay awake under the ocean is drink a lot of coffee. So these guys know coffee, and they know really good coffee, and they're my go-to every morning.
Smuggle crystal meth onto a nuclear sub, can you, in the Navy?
It is frowned upon. Yes, they've got some new regulations.
Frowned upon, discouraged, or prohibited?
Probably prohibited. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I have trouble understanding what's really prohibited or frowned upon in the U.S. military after seeing footage of those tailhook conventions. Prohibited, frowned upon, discouraged, semantics.
Yeah, if you don't know what tailhook it is, Google it. You'll find out that we have an embarrassing moment in the history of the Navy. But of course, it was all aviators, not submariners. Yeah. So, but by the fun fact about tailhook is that all of us, every officer in the Navy, our next rank was held up as they investigated tailhook. So even if you were a submariner like I was, and I was actually underway under the ocean during tailhook, my rank was held up during the investigation. So I lost money. I lost pay.
Isn't that when you were bucking for a promotion to admiral?
I think it might have been Lieutenant JG, but sure, we'll go with admiral.
Damn. Sorry, John.
Terrible.
Yeah. So we've got a heck of a episode in store for you today, folks. We are talking X Factor books.
Books, yes.
Yeah. And when I tell you X Factor books, you're probably thinking, true. What the hell do you and your co-host know about books? Listen, I've been coloring in those damn things since I was a toddler. I know a hell of a lot about books. Thank you very much. John, what do you know about books? We have to demonstrate our expertise so we have credibility with our audience.
I don't know what to say.
People on the edge of their seat right now listening.
I would say that I did do a lot of coloring as a youth. So maybe when I say youth, I'm talking about.
Did you say ute?
Yeah, it's a ute.
What is a ute?
What is a ute?
It's a young man, a ute. I might have colored a few things in my life. but maybe we know a little bit about books because we've written a few.
Just a couple.
Just a couple.
Speaking of which, let's jump into this. Okay.
Yes.
X Factor for the rookies, the newbies, the people who are just discovering us for the first time.
Yes.
Could you explain to them what the X Factor is?
Yeah. So X Factor is kind of the thing, it's that one little special thing about a company, a movie, a person, an actor that
you probably heard it referred to as the it factor too.
Yeah,
right?
it's the one thing that elevates somebody above another. So you might there's a lot of actors out there, but there's only a few that reach the level of, I don't know, George Clooney or what have you. These guys have something special, right? Same thing with companies. There's a lot of companies out there, but there are very few Apples, right, in the world, or Nikes or what have you. These companies that really elevate themselves and separate themselves from the pack. So the whole point of this podcast is looking at different elements in the world and analyzing those people, places, companies that have that X factor, and we try to dissect why they have the X factor so that you in your business and whatever you're doing today, you can learn from it and take away those valuable lessons. And the fun thing about this podcast is that we pick a subject. Like today, we're going to talk about X factor books.
I thought you were going to say the fun thing about this podcast is Brubaker's completely unmedicated today.
Well, I thought it was every day, but maybe that's just
I'm off the chain when we're doing this, JR.
I know you are.
I'm on even keel. Notice the nautical reference. I'm on an even
the nautical
keel.
Reference. Yeah.
See, we're all in the same boat here. I'm on an even keel 6 days a week.
Yep.
We record this mofo, and I'm off the chain.
Yep. So we don't even know what each other is going to talk about. We each pick a particular person, place, or thing or item, and we're going to talk about it. And then we're going to teach some lessons, and we'll see where it goes from there. We really don't know where it's going to end up when we start this show. No. We didn't know when we started the show originally. We still don't know where it's going, but it's all about you've got two.
Trying not to get canceled. Yes, that's what it's all about.
It's what it's all about. You've got two business leaders, two best-selling authors, best-smelling authors, as John likes to say, here live, and we've got Parker, the DFE, the intern, the studio boy, supporting us. But you've got basically a world-class group of guys here to give you some advice, give you some wisdom, and we have a little bit of fun along the way because Coach Brew doesn't take his meds.
So I think, this is by design, John. You need to go first today because after you go and it becomes my turn, I'm going to shatter everyone's perception of the entire book industry.
All right. I like it.
So I'm just going to crush your dreams, folks. You're never going to look at a book the same way again. And you'll think twice about whatever JR is about to share with you.
So basically,
no pressure, John.
You're preempting my presentation by saying yours is going to be better no matter what I say.
No, I'm just saying mine's going to crush the entire industry. People might hate me for this.
Yeah, well,
like when someone who shouldn't have told you Santa wasn't real.
Yes.
Easter Bunny is fake. There's no tooth fairy. That's your mom throwing a nickel under the pillow because she's too cheap to put $1. Yeah, it's going to be one of those. So I'm just warning you all. It's going to be a hilarious buzzkill.
So you're going to kill some sacred cows.
We're going to slaughter them and make hamburgers out of them. Yes.
All right. I like meat. So good. I'm looking forward to that. I'm now I don't even know if I want to go first.
Well, let's get moving.
I love it. I love it. So I want to talk about, we're talking about X Factor books that became an X Factor or have the X Factor. So I'm going to talk about Harry Potter. So and I'm actually really going to talk more about J.K. Rowling more than Harry Potter himself, but I want to talk about a book called Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. And you probably never heard it referred to that. You might have heard the Sorcerer's Stone, but the original book was called Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. And you might have heard a little bit about J.K. Rowling and her story, but it's pretty interesting. And it's a great story about someone who basically everything went wrong in her life, but she used that for an advantage, and really she did some amazing things with it. So let me just, if we go back a little bit to the early part of her career in 1982, we talked about this in another podcast. We did X Factor Universities. She actually applied to go to Oxford University in England. She's from England. And in 1982, she was not accepted. So she couldn't go to Oxford. She ended up going to the University of Exeter. But so that was the beginning of rejection in her life. And
is that a truck driving school, a school for wayward girls?
University of Exeter,
home economics institution. What is that? The University of Exeter.
I don't know. I imagine it's in England somewhere. She studied French and classics. So like classic pickles, classic cars. Not sure.
You're thinking of Vlasic
pickles. That's what I was thinking of. Exactly.
Oh yeah, I was wondering classic pickles.
So she worked for Amnesty International as a researcher. So you can imagine that's a pretty low-paying job. Amnesty International is sort of a it's a charity type of organization, right? In 1990, and she was stuck on a 4-hour delay on a train ride going from Manchester to London. And when she was on that train, she came up with the thought about writing a book about this wizard school that would take a train over to this wizard university. And so she got out the idea. This was in 1990. She came up with the idea. And then she started kind of dabbling on writing this book and what it would look like. And it took her 7 years to write the book. And during that 7-year period, let me tell you what happened to her. Her mom died. She had a baby, had her first child. Her husband divorced her, and then she lost her job. And eventually she was just living on welfare. And she was living just essentially in poverty during that entire time. And she considers herself a failure. So her marriage had failed. She was jobless. She had a dependent child, and she was on welfare. And during this time, she was actually diagnosed with clinical depression and attempted suicide during that time. So, this is a story of everything had failed for her. Everything possible had just completely, the rug had been pulled out from under all her.
A clear story of white privilege right there.
This is not good, right?
I mean, just look at all the resources she had at her disposal there.
Right. And so the reason I tell you the beginning of that story is because we've all been there, right? Where things just haven't worked out, and we've faced, losses and challenges and just insurmountable odds. And most people would give up during this. And that's what I love about her story, is that she didn't give up. And in fact, I was reading an article about her, and she said that she saw her failure as liberating, because it finally allowed her to focus on writing this amazing book. So she looked at it as an opportunity then to now take advantage of this free time she had to be able to dedicate her effort into writing this book. And she also, if you know anything about the series, there are these soul-sucking creatures called Dementors that come into some of the later books. And those, she came up with that idea as a result of her depression. So she thought of them as Dementors that would come and suck her soul. So she used even her depression as an element in her books going forward, which is pretty amazing. So
it's the HR department of most companies, Dementors.
Well, it's
by far.
It was kind of cool because she almost used her like depression and everything going bad in her life as like a creativity, like she
absolutely
used it to,
I love that,
further her creativity in the book.
Absolutely.
And weren't a lot of the characters, John, and excuse me if I'm stealing your thunder, weren't a lot of the characters and just sort of like the picture she painted of the setting of the institution, Hogwarts, based on people she knew in school growing up during her formative years, and kind of like what the buildings looked like, and
absolutely
all the drama and bullshit that you have in school.
Yep.
So like it's a great story of your message.
Yeah, exactly. Dumbledore was built off of her headmaster when she was in elementary school. So every one of these characters was somebody from her life, and she put them into a story, which is really kind of special and neat. And I think that's why it attracted so many people, because it was so real when it was put together. These people had the real type of personalities you'd expect from real characters in a book, right? So it wasn't didn't seem so fake. But so here's what's interesting. In 1995, 5 years after she came up with the idea, she finally wrote the book, and it was called Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. And she finished it in 1995, and it was all typed on an old manual typewriter. So she did the manuscript on a typewriter. And then in 1995, we had computers. Like everybody was using computers and using word processor type programs. She did it on a typewriter. So once again, people say, well, I can't write a book because I don't have a computer. I can't do this because I can't sell books because I have a small presence on social media. I mean, there's just an example.
Best book I wrote on yellow legal pad with a pencil.
See that? Yeah. Which one was that, by the way?
Seed the Success.
Seed the Success. One of my favorites right here. By the way, I keep it right here. One of my favorite books. I was just talking.
That's my X Factor book. I'm actually going to be honking my own horn for about 10 minutes on this pod.
You should. I was actually on a podcast. I had somebody on my podcast. We were talking about this book on my podcast. So if you listen in to my
you should every episode you should feature that, I think everybody should.
I love it. So
don't tell me, tell all your friends, folks.
I do. So she types it on a typewriter. She gives it. Now she's got a manuscript, and she went to 12 different publishing houses in the UK, which all rejected her, just like Oxford University. So once again, all her hopes and dreams, 5 years worth of work, flushed down the toilet. She gets rejected. She keeps trying, though. A year after she first started submitting it, she had one small publishing house called Bloomsbury decide they'll accept the book and they're going to publish the book. And they did. In 1997, they published the book. But get this, and you'll know what this means being an author. They only published 1,000 copies because they didn't believe it was going to go anywhere. And 500 of them they sent to UK libraries. So they only put 500 into the open market.
And going to a library, it's almost like a loss leader,
Right. So you can imagine
people are checking it out and bringing it back, and it's not like one person buying a copy, another person buying a copy.
Right. So that's
awesome.
So that just says that they didn't think that this book had any legs, right? That it wasn't going to go anywhere. And in fact, right now, by the way, if you try to find those copies, those original 1,000 copies, you can buy them for around $32,000 to $50,000 a piece. That's how valuable they became. But in 1998, after almost about a year afterwards, she won the British Book Award for Children's Book of the Year, and then she eventually, later that year, she won the Children's Book Award. And then in 1998, they wanted to go to the U.S., so they auctioned off the rights to her book for the U.S. production, and Scholastic Inc. actually won out and paid $105,000 for the rights to publish her book in the U.S.
What a steal!
Can you imagine? Yeah, what a steal. And Rowling said that she nearly died when she found out someone was willing to pay that much money for the book. She was shocked beyond belief.
Little did she know.
I mean, who knew? She wrote it on a typewriter. She was rejected by 12 different publishing companies. Some little company gave her a chance, right? And then they only printed 1,000 copies. So you're a failure. At that point, you're thinking, my life is a failure. I am a failure. And then suddenly, $105,000 for my little book. I'm winning some awards. Well, maybe I'm not a failure, right? Maybe I'm okay. Yeah. So October 1998, Scholastic publishes they changed the name to Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. We all know that now. And that was it. I mean, she exploded from there. And 6 sequels later, and the whole series was done by 2007. And that whole the 7-book series sold more than 500 million copies. I mean, one of the most impressive books and book series ever written.
What was the total profit number? Like, how much did she make from those 500 million copies sold?
So, according to Forbes, she's the world's first billionaire author, the first person who ever became a billionaire.
I was second. Jon Rennie was third. In case you're keeping score at home, folks.
I don't think so. I'm not. I know that.
Sorry. You're right. You were second. I was third. You're right.
Millions.
Credit where credit's due. There we go.
So, and in October 2010, she was named the most influential woman in Britain. How about that? So, I think the moral of this story, and what I like about her story, and first of all, I mean, I love the books myself. My kids were young when they came out. We all read them. We went to see the movies. It was a big part of my children's, how they grew up and what have you. But I love the story of her and the idea that, you can be down, but you're never out. As long as you got breath in your lungs, right? And you got an old typewriter, you can make, your dreams a reality. And so no matter where you're at in your business career, in your personal life, I mean, you can be down, but you don't count yourself as out. You've got to be able to step up. And, this is a great story of really rags to riches. I mean, the first billionaire author ever. And it's someone who wrote it on a typewriter and got rejected by 12 publishing houses. I mean, it's an incredible story of what determination, hard work. I mean, turning your negatives into a positive. It's a remarkable story, and she's a remarkable author. And I look up to her for what she did and her determination. And she was down, but she wasn't out. And we got to remember that in our lives as well. We can be down, but just don't count yourself out.
Yeah.
So.
My favorite thing about J.K. Rowling is she doesn't take herself seriously. She doesn't take the industry she works in very seriously either. And by that, I mean, she basically proved what I've been saying all along my entire career, is that the gatekeepers and the air quote experts don't know shit about shit.
That's a great example of it.
They cannot recognize talent or quality. And she went on to prove that after she was famous. She decided to submit a manuscript to several publishers.
This is
under
great.
a pseudonym, the name Robert Galbraith. And I forget the name of the book. It might have been, let's see if I can find this. I'm Googling it as we speak. Even though
this is a great
producer
story.
who could do this. Troubled Blood, maybe, I think it was called. Anyway, she sent this manuscript to a bunch of publishing houses and agents, and they all rejected it. One of them even wrote a note on like a little Post-it note that said, I suggest you get some writing lessons, take a couple writing courses before you ever attempt to submit anything anywhere to anyone. So she self-published it, and somehow I think the BBC leaked it that, hey, this is really J.K. Rowling who wrote this Robert Galbraith novel. It's just, think about how many, and it goes along with the whole, like, nobody cares who you are or what you do until you're already famous.
That's it.
And then they'll try and take credit for your genius.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
so it says, I looked it up just to, because
he doesn't believe me, so he's fact
checking.
checking.
No.
Hey,
I'm not
Brubaker, you're actually right.
No, I'm not fact checking because I was gonna help you look it up, but
a lot of help. Thanks. We're done with that segment, Parker.
Well,
what do you got? What do you got, kid?
Well, it says here, J.K. Rowling has spoken of the liberating experience of adopting a nom de plume after it was revealed that Harry Potter creator was behind a critically acclaimed crime novel published under the name of Robert Galbraith. The Cuckoo's Calling, billed as the debut novel of Galbraith, a pseudonym for a man with a background in the army and civilian security industry, won praise from crime writers and critics who hailed the author as a new force. And then it says down here, oh gosh. Oh wow. Yeah. So one of the critics said, just once in a while, a private detective emerges who captures the public imagination in a flash, and here's one might well do that. There's no sign that this is Galbraith's first novel, only that he has a delightful touch for evoking London and capturing you here in auspicious debut.
So basically, they said, not bad for a rookie.
Yeah, not bad for a rookie who is the
never mind, a literary icon,
billionaire author in the world,
like one of the best authors to ever touch.
I just think that's it's incredible. But you're right. I mean, how many people will jump on board a famous person writing a book? Like, oh well, that, everybody knows that person. So, and the reason is, and you know this too, and you're probably going to reveal it during your time, but the reason is because they're lazy, right? And they want to be able to sell a lot of books, and they want to do a lot of effort to sell those books. So if they get a famous name on the cover, they know they can sell a bunch of books just through name recognition, regardless of that whether that book is good or bad, right?
You know what I just realized?
What's that?
Your first book, the reason you wanted me to write the forward was so you could put my name on the cover so it would
Yes.
sell 1 million copies.
Exactly. Now you know.
I feel so used. I feel like you treated me like a piece of meat, John.
Yeah, well, but it worked.
Yep. Hey, folks, listen, we're all prostitutes. We just sell different parts of ourselves.
Right.
So apparently I sold my name.
But just to further the whole J.K. Rowling thing, I think that J.K. Rowling also stands for something further than just like being an author.
Stands
but
for
also,
just kidding, Rowling. Yeah. That's her legal name, Parker.
Well, I think she also stands for a lot of
Jebediah's kid stands for Jebediah's. Oh, no, that's you. Never mind.
But I think she stands for a lot of like good mental health, like stuff, like being aware of like your mental health and using healthy outlets to explore your creativity in like certain areas. And like for her, like she used writing books as a way to like kind of get through those hard times and like improve herself. So I think
Yeah,
it's
everybody
pretty
needs
cool.
a creative outlet like that. I agree.
Yep.
Well said.
I love it. That's a great story. J.K. Rowling.
Feel so used though. Now I feel so used, John.
I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, it's great. I'm putting my foot down right now though.
Okay.
And I'm gonna say it's time we move on and talk about my XFactor book.
Let's do it. I'm excited because you gave us you preempted it by saying it's going to blow our mind. It's going to make us
It's gonna beat J.K.
It's going to be
Rowling.
like it's going to be like change our whole mindset about the whole book industry. And I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. Are you ready, Parker? Because I know I'm ready.
So this book is by an author that I hold in higher regard than J.K. Rowling or even Robert Galbraith, and it's his second book, and he is a retired submariner who served on a nuclear sub during the Cold War. I don't know if either of you guys or any of our listeners have ever heard of him, but his name's Jon Rennie, and he just published a book called All in the Same Boat. And strangely, I was not asked to write the forward to this one after basically I made his first book a bestseller by writing the forward.
You did.
To his, should we call it a cult classic, John?
It has become that. Yes. I think that's a good way to describe it.
I Have the Watch.
Yeah. My first book was I Have the Watch. Yep.
I have the watch.
Not that kind of watch, Coach Brew. It's a Navy term for being responsible for the boat at the time. Yes.
Bro, I was just showing off my Rolex. Come on. No, but in all seriousness, it's All in the Same Boat. Has been set for pre-order now, right? People can pre-order this at allinthesameboatbook.com.
Yes, March 15th, we went live, allinthesameboatbook.com for pre-orders.
Link is right here.
Yes.
Yeah, it's right here.
Yes. By the way, you did review the book and your review.
I endorsed it. I didn't review it.
Yeah, right. Can I read your endorsement? Because I think it's great.
Which one?
The one you wrote for
the
my new
one
book.
I wrote, or the second one I texted you and said change it to this?
The second one, because I liked it.
I think you should read the first one and then I should tell them what I changed it to. Because I'm so fickle and wishy-washy, I changed my endorsement probably after the thing went to press.
I got to go find your original one. I like the second one so much that so let's see. What was it?
It was something about like pens and notepads and.
Oh yeah. I don't know where that is. I can't.
You want me to I'll tell them what it was and you can do the second one. Okay.
All right. That sounds good. Yeah.
So my first endorsement in his book, after he sent me the manuscript, was, my endorsement was that I scolded John and reprimanded him because I thought it was irresponsible of him to publish this book alone. That book should come with notepads, highlighters, and a box of pens because it is so rich with ideas and strategies that, I said it's basically irresponsible of him to sell it without writing implements and paper.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Which I liked. Can I read the second one though that you wrote?
That, but he loved what he's about to tell you next.
So this was the
And I swear I was sober when I said this.
it says the movie Titanic would have had a happy ending if Rose and Jack would have read All in the Same Boat.
So there are some people out there.
That's going in the book, by the way. It's too classic.
It's damn well better.
What's that?
It's damn well better.
Oh, it's in the book. It's done. It's a done deal.
So for those of you who haven't seen, Parker, have you seen the Titanic?
Yes, I have. It's been a long time since I've seen it.
Right. John, can you explain to people who maybe haven't seen the Titanic what specific scene I was referencing?
Yeah, at the end of the movie, when the ship has sunk and Rose and Jack are in the water, Rose happens to find I guess it's a door frame, part of a door frame that she's laying on top of, and in the movie, of course, Jack can't fit on the door for some reason. Anyways, they say goodbye, and he sinks in the ocean and dies, and she lives. But of course, as everybody knows, and it's been proven by Mythbusters too, is that there was plenty of room on that door for the both of them, and they both could have lived. They both could have been all on the same piece of wood.
And technically not a boat, more like just a
piece of wood.
Yeah, shard of wood.
Yeah.
Any port in a storm.
Yes.
Yeah, I could have. I should have been one of the screenwriters on that.
I know.
I would have made it a happy ending. And not the kind of happy ending you're thinking of, Robert Kraft. So
that was a past episode.
It's all in the same boat book.com, or is it all in the same boat.com?
All in the same boat book.com.
And that's right here.
Yep.
Go ahead and pre-order it. We're having a pre-order contest, are we? Or, some jackass suggested you give away some other books along with it. What's all that about, John?
Yeah, so we're going to be announcing it shortly, but so everybody that pre-orders the book, we're going to be in pre-order for 2 months up until about May 15th. And so we're going to have some prizes we're going to give out. And so just about everybody that orders a book will get an opportunity for one of these prizes. And so the prizes haven't all been announced yet, but I can tell you one of them is a
standing desk.
No, not a standing desk.
Oh, okay.
That would be a good idea, but I don't want to copy.
Maybe I'm mistaking that for another contest that we ought to talk about, but go ahead.
Yeah, but I know one of the gifts, one of the prizes is going to be a book, The Coach Approach by Coach Brew himself. And so 50 people will get a copy of that book. So I think right now looks like the biggest prize will be something you have in your office, John, as well. It's going to be one of these handcrafted American flag wood American flags.
Nice.
That we have. I have a friend of mine who makes those, and we're going to make that the grand prize for the giveaway for that. But there's a number of other giveaways, including of course, Bottom Gun Coffee will be part of it. I've got some friends at a company called Test Depth, which is all submarine gear. They'll be a part of it.
Giving away a Tesla? What'd you say?
No, Test Depth, which is a whole thing in and of itself.
It's sworn you told me you're giving away a couple of Teslas.
I would if I could.
Cheapskate.
I could. You have a car. You have a Tesla. You have a Tesla. But no, we're not doing a Tesla. And then some of the guys from it's called Sailors and Sticks. It's a bunch of Navy veterans, active duty, that are into whiskey and cigars, and we're gonna have some swag that they're gonna give away. So just to so everybody that puts in and gets a pre-order will be getting an opportunity to win a special gift or prize. So
let this be me incentivizing you all to get off your ass and pre-order now.
Yes.
Scrape the cobwebs off of your wallet. Blow the dust off your credit card so you can read the number. Go to allinthesameboatbook.com. Get yourself a copy now.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I guarantee it'll be the most interesting leadership book you read this year. Guaranteed. No question about it. There's not been a book written like this ever. And I know you're going to like it.
So this is like basically a 10-minute commercial for your book, because this was not the X Factor book that I'm actually going to talk to everyone about, John. So I think this book might rival All in the Same Boat book as far as leadership
All right.
books go. It's definitely not better. It's a close second, though, John. And I don't know if you're familiar with the literary genius Brent Underwood. Do you know Brent Underwood? I
Sounds like
forget.
a
Have we
country
talked?
singer.
Have I introduced you to Brent Underwood?
No, I don't think so.
Don't Google it. Don't
Okay.
cheat.
All right.
Okay. Brent is an author. Technically, he's an author, and he's famous for in 2016. Back in February of 2016, he published a best-selling book, and it cost him $2.97 and about 5 minutes of his time.
Wow.
It went viral. Yeah. His book is called Putting My Foot Down. Very aptly named Putting My Foot Down. And it is, if you look at the category that it would fall under, you know, people are wondering, hey, what genre is that? Fiction, nonfiction? Is a nonfiction book. And the genre it falls under is Freemasonry and transpersonal psychology.
I know the story. Now I know who he is.
It is an ebook.
Yes.
And it is, if you're wondering, like, I don't know if I want to buy this, I don't have much time to read, it's pageless. It is literally one lone image of his left foot on the front cover, and the pages inside are blank. Now, he bought one copy of the book after he published it on Amazon and encouraged two of his friends to each buy a copy. 90 minutes later, after selling a whopping 3 copies, became an Amazon bestseller in the categories of Freemasonry and transpersonal psychology. So basically pick the most obscure categories, publish something that is essentially nothing other than a picture of your foot, title it Putting My Foot Down, and you have one very disenfranchised, frustrated author's expose of what an absolute crock of shit the publishing industry is, and these bestseller lists, which I use air quotes to say bestseller list, because so much of the Wall Street Journal, New York Times bestseller list, USA Today bestseller list are not real bestsellers. It is not a meritocracy where a actual factual real score is being kept on an honest scoreboard. There's a company, and this is where I told you I would shatter your dreams, folks, and blow the doors off the whole industry that John and I work in. There's a company that is called Result Source. And authors often, it's usually like douchey business guru authors or speakers who try and fast track and game the system and cheat their way to success, who aren't even good writers anyway. But they often will hire this company, Result Source, pay them between $150,000 and $200,000. So it's people with more money than common sense or integrity. And Result Source will deploy shills that they have in different regions of the United States. On the day that your book launches, they will buy bulk copies through different retail channels. So your book will be hitting the bestseller list if it'll sell like 15, 20,000 copies in the first 2 days of the week. All books are typically published and released on a Tuesday. So Tuesday and Wednesday of any given week, Result Source will deploy their shills for one of their clients to buy the book in bulk. And you get to basically say through a sales list called BookScan that you're a best-selling author. You'll hit the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, or whatever. And then the very next week, you'll be gone.
Right.
You'll be number one for a week, and then you're like nowhere to be found. And if you want to sniff out some of your favorite authors or authors you think like previously thought were wonderful, look up and see if they're on bestseller list, and then go to eBay and see how many hundreds upon hundreds of, maybe even in some cases thousands of copies of their books are available for like $1. because they don't throw them away. Result Source will resell them on eBay. And this guy just got fed up and he wanted to expose the fraud that is most bestseller lists. Now, there are some iconic business books, classic business books like Good to Great by Jim Collins, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Yeah, those are
that
great.
essentially live on the bestseller list, and rightfully so. They've earned their place there for weeks, months, in some cases, years. Most of the others, those people have bought their way there. And it's just kind of sad because it diminishes any and all credibility everyone, you would think would have.
It's almost like, it almost sounds kind of like those games you get on like your phone and stuff where you can like pay to win sort of thing. Like you put money in and then you could be like the top person or whatever. And like these people are just paying to get the title that means absolutely nothing.
It's also what you see with streaming and music. An artist will come out with a new release. If their label will hire stream farms that are just literally enormous rooms filled with phones and iPads that just stream on a loop that artist's song over and over and over again.
Wait, just to get like the views basically?
Yep.
Yeah, just to hit #1 on a streaming chart.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, it goes to this, John, it's part of human nature, right? We don't want to take risks. So we want to know, it's social proof, right? We want to know, is this a good book or not? Am I going to waste, $19 on this book? Oh,
yeah, this is the illusion of social proof.
Right. It's like, well, this is a #1 bestseller. So I'm going to buy the book because of that. Right.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with like Yelp review on restaurants. Like a lot of people will, before they even go to a restaurant, they'll say, well, what does Yelp say? Like, I'm not going to go unless Yelp gives me it says it's good or whatever. And I mean, I don't know you guys, but for me, like sometimes the best places you go to are the ones that you don't ever do any research ahead of time. You just show up and you go to this restaurant that's amazing and you never heard of it. And it's a wonderful experience. Same thing with a book, right? Some of the best
Or
books
it's a little hole in the wall that your friend told you about that you can't even find anything online.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so
like those are the best books, right?
And those are the best books. Those are the best restaurants. Those are the best places. Those are the best experiences, right? Because even I've always said this too, even if you go someplace and you have a terrible experience, you have an incredible memory, positive memory of that experience, right? Like it's something you laugh about for years, remember that place we went to and, so, but we're trying to curate everything we do. We want to make sure that we only read the books that everybody's reading. We only go to the restaurants where everybody else is going. We only go on vacation spots where everybody else is going. And I think we miss out on what's the fun part of life when we go into something we don't know about what's going to come out. So, if you're just looking for that #1 bestseller, Wall Street Journal bestseller on the cover, you're missing out on some wonderful books and wonderful thoughts. And there's a lot of crap out there too, which would be a lot of fun too, just to see what crap is out there. So this is kind of makes you think a little bit about what those labels really mean.
This guy, Brent Underwood, got an email from a woman after he published that book. And then, Business Insider, Forbes, a bunch of media outlets published his story about how he exposed the fraud that is bestseller lists. She emailed him saying that she found a quote author whose book was on one of those lists. And she was actually thinking about going into business with this person. But she read Underwood's, kind of this expose and smartly backed out of the deal. So like what it was initially a prank actually helped someone avoid being taken.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is pretty cool. He did this almost as a gag on a whim, $3 in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then, him basically exposing a whole industry as a fraud actually helped this lady not get conned, So I have a lot of respect for anybody that is going to do something that wild and outrageous and, run some risk of, backlash for doing that.
Yeah.
So God bless them.
Yeah, I think you're right to say that if you really want to look at best-selling lists as a marker of success for a book. Look at the ones that, as you mentioned, several that have been there for years on the bestseller list, right?
Yeah.
There's something special about that book, and you can't game the system for years, right? Or
It's
months,
undeniable. Yep.
right?
So-
So look for those that have the long-term success, not ones that just have a short, 1 week on the bestseller list just to get something on their book cover.
So
And your
now,
point with Yelp is perfect. It's spot on because Yelp is actually a cartel. If you haven't seen the documentary $1 Billion Bully, great documentary to go and watch because it exposes Yelp for what they are. I have a lot of friends in the hospitality industry who own small restaurants, and when they first got started, they would get a phone call from Yelp asking them if they want to advertise on Yelp. And they'd say, hey, I'm a startup. I don't really have an advertising budget yet. We're still getting our footing. Give us a call back in, 6 months to a year, whatever. And then all of a sudden they would notice a negative review on their Yelp page that they didn't even create.
Mm.
And, these are business owners who work in the business 24/7. They're not absent owners. They're there, customer facing capacity. And there are complaints and critiques. There are 1-star Yelp reviews of things that never happen, or in some cases, menu items they don't even sell on their menu. And they would get a phone call a few weeks later from the same Yelp telemarketer asking them, hey, you sure you don't want to advertise? I notice you have a couple bad reviews and we could help you get rid of them.
Yep.
Yeah. I wonder how they got there. And
It's
I wonder.
shakedown. It's a shakedown.
Total
Yeah.
shakedown.
Yep.
So, when you read these Yelp reviews, did that person pay to have nice things said about them on Yelp? Or, are these legitimate earned reviews? Probably the former.
Yep. Well, I mean, we know that Amazon does that. We know that Google does that. We know that Twitter does that. So if you don't pay up, you don't get the top billing. You don't get the attention. It's basically, like you said, it's a you're being shaken down. So
yeah, publishing industry is kind of the canary in the coal mine with that. But trust is at an all-time low in this country.
Yeah.
Politically and in business and in every industry, and that's something that affects all of us. And we're really all in the business of building trust first, and we're in the relationship business, which is why as much fun as we like to have, we're always 100% honest with you here on this podcast.
Yep.
Yeah. So those are a couple of X Factor books, JR.
Yeah, I love it. That was great.
Harry Potter and Brent Underwood. Brent, if you're listening, you've probably never been mentioned in the same category as, say, a J.K. Rowling ever before, but allow me to be the first. You're the man.
Yep. Both of them shook the industry, and that's what's really what
Robert
Galbraith.
You're the man.
Was the man.
So this episode of the podcast has been brought to you by our friends at Bottom Gun Coffee. Check them out at bottomguncoffee.com. And P1 listeners, what is a P1, John?
Yeah, P1 listener is the one that's actively engaged. So the scenario is, like your car stereo, you have your presets. Your number one is your favorite. So we want to be your number one favorite podcast. So those that are P1 listeners, they're going to subscribe, they're going to share, they're going to talk to their friends about it, they're going to tell their spouse, they're going to tell their therapist, they're going to tell their chiropractor that they got to listen to this podcast. So we like P1 listeners, they get special gifts and prizes. We send random things their way, like Bottom Gun Coffee, like mugs and books from best smelling authors. So we do our best to reward those that are number one in our hearts and minds. So if you're not a P1 listener now, we encourage you to become a P1 listener, because it is a exclusive club that only few members are a part of, and you can be a part of that special community as well.
I think we should get members only jackets for them.
Yeah, that's true.
That'd be nice.
Yep.
Yeah. So John, how long have you been sitting there?
Too long.
Your butt falling asleep?
It is.
Your neck getting tired?
Yes.
Your legs like kind of getting pins and needles feeling to them?
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what would help with that?
What's that?
A standing desk.
How could I get a standing desk?
So I'm glad you asked. JR, I'm glad you asked.
Tell us about
apparel
how I
company.
could get one.
My apparel company, chinupchestout.com. We just released our spring collection. Parker's rocking one of our t-shirts.
Yes.
We just released our spring collection. There are over a dozen different items, ranging everywhere from a hooded sweatshirt to t-shirts, hats, sports bras, you name it. What else do we have? I forget. But
You have hoodies. You got a tie-dye hoodie.
We got a tie-dye hoodie,
Tank
not
tops?
tie-dye like Grateful Dead tie-dye, like one color tie-dye.
Well, yeah, it's still a
Tank
tie-dye.
tops?
Really, really, really fun, nice stuff to kick off your spring with the weather warming up. And with one lucky customer, they're going to
Yes.
win a standing desk, an Ergotron WorkFit P sit-stand workstation. And, you know, for every dollar you spend there or purchasing my books, every dollar you spend, you get one entry into this raffle. So
That's
if you
awesome.
bought a $60 item or spent $60 on apparel and you bought 2 copies of my book, any one of my books, you get 100 tickets.
That's great.
And yeah, it's a fun contest, and it is something I am passionate about. You know, sitting is the new smoking, as doctors are saying. The Mayo
Yep.
Clinic basically said that for every hour you spend sitting, you decrease your lifespan by 2 hours. And our physical health is intimately tied to our mental health, which is, you know, what my brand is all about, you know, maintaining your mental health. So I thought was a good fit. And we had a wonderful response thus far. The contest ends April 30th. So head over to chinupchestout.com and get yourself some merch, and you might win a standing desk. And
Yes.
right there. The link is right there. Check it out. And yeah, there you have it. And there it is. Next episode,
Yes.
X Factor movies.
Ooh,
See
this is
what
gonna
we
be
did?
good.
We just teased
Yeah.
that which hopefully Parker will release on time the following week.
And it won't get mixed up in order, too.
Yeah. And putting James Elliott in charge of making sure we hold Parker accountable.
He's in charge.
This is we're crowdsourcing amongst our audience the accountability for our producer.
Yes.
That's what absent leaders we are today, John.
Yes. I'm okay with that.
So yeah, thexfactorpodcast.com, and we will catch you on the next episode. Did I forget anything, John?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Subscribe,
Perfect.
share, like, buy a book.
Or don't. We really don't care.
True. We don't.
No pressure.
Yeah. This is free, by the way.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.